Thank you so much for joining us on 6 Plus. I'm Chris Radcliffe, and here's what's in the news now. A father is asking for help after someone vandalized his son's memorial in August. The city of Temple honored the late Christopher Johnson with a statue at his favorite spot on Pepper Creek Trail. But now, just a few months later, someone has stolen the fishing rod and necklaces from the statue. 6 News reporter Juliana Jackson spoke to Christopher's father on how this happened and what the community can do to help.
It's a memorial, it's a monument, it represents my son, and you're going to take away from that?
Christopher Johnson loved fishing at Pepper Creek Trail. In August, the city of Temple placed a statue honoring him after he died in a motorcycle accident at 19 years old. Someone has since stole the fishing rod and necklaces that hung on the statue. Christopher's father, Gary Johnson, found the damage.
Had a little fish on the string, a little wooden fish tied to it. They pulled the fish off, threw it on the ground, and were able to remove the fishing pole and rod. Very disrespectful, very hurtful.
Gary hopes whoever did this will return the items or at least come to respect his son and learn his story.
If this person were to try to make it right, nothing more will be said, and they can feel better about themselves. So, yeah, no matter what, Chris is going to be honored. This doesn't take away from that.
Gary started Heart and Soul Christopher Johnson Foundation, continuing his son's work on sharing his adoption story and helping other foster children. He hopes this statue is a reminder for the community to be like Chris.
Proud of my son, and have been proud of the community for supporting this effort.
News did reach out to Temple PD and no reports have been made, but if someone wants to make one, they can certainly call 254-298-5500 or go by the station and file a report. A 75-year-old disabled veteran is in the ICU and on a ventilator after his family says his Coppers Cove nursing home neglected him. The family contacted the state about their concerns with the living conditions and the lack of communication. With his medical history, 6 News reporter Sydney Deshawn has been investigating this for us and brings us the details. I do want to warn you, the images that you're about to see are quite graphic.
I'm sorry, it's just so disgusting. It has 123 beds. These are people's loved ones. These are people that can't talk. I can only imagine how they're being treated behind closed doors.
Lacey Percival is the daughter of 75-year-old Robert Turner. He was a patient at Coppers Cove Nursing and Rehab for 18 months.
We were in a car accident. Then I could no longer care for him.
Things took a turn for the worse.
I have endless, and I mean endless, voicemails of my father.
Lacey, please try to help me. My call light has been on for 2 hours. My urinal is full of piss. I'm sitting in and no one's coming by. I'm all alone in this little room. I just feel so depressed.
It always had to get to the point that he had to call me and I have to call to make something happen, and that's the only way something happened.
On October 8th, Percival visited the facility.
Tuesday, I spent 3 hours with my father cleaning his room, cutting his hair and his nails.
She said she had enough, so she took matters into her own hands.
I have been in contact with the state in regards to my father's personal hygiene, his overall care, the cleanliness of his room, all of these things, missing medical appointments, not being rescheduled.
October 10th, her father left the nursing home unresponsive in septic shock.
They performed a CT scan and it showed an enlarged left kidney on my father. Further assessing him, they found a stent. That stent became infected because over the course of the last 2 months since that stent was placed on August 15th with a discharge paperwork to follow up with urology in 1 week was just overlooked. Since the stent traveled up, it was infected, traveled up into his kidney and the septic shock, his kidney, heart, and lung are now all failing him, and he is fighting for his life in ICU.
Texas Health and Human Services confirmed they are actively investigating the facility but couldn't provide details of what they found.
I have questions and I want answers.
ProPublica, an investigative nonprofit, found the nursing home has been penalized multiple times by the state with $118,000 in total fines between 2021 and 2022. They also had multiple deficiencies last year too. That included an F grade for nutrition and diet and a D on quality of life care.
The nursing home is still up and running. Clearly the state system is flawed. We just proved that. So who's checking the state?
Percival says she feels both the nursing home and the state failed her.
Family members need to stop tolerating this. Family members are afraid to report it due to the repercussions, and they're not wrong. If your loved one is in a nursing home, please be their voice. Please check on them.
Reporting for 6 News, I'm Sydney DeShawn.
6 News went to the nursing home and asked for a statement. They declined and, in fact, escorted us out. If there are more concerns about abuse or neglect, Texas Health and Human Services is urging people to call their incident intake hotline, and we have that number listed on the screen. Now to an ongoing 6 Fix investigation. A Bell County woman has a flooding problem on her hands after she says a neighboring property was altered and then water was diverted. The city of Temple says the work completed at the property along State Highway 317 was done without permits. And now a stop work order has been issued by code compliance. A city spokesperson says a building permit process is needed to determine how the development would impact neighboring properties from a drainage perspective. It could have potentially kept this situation from happening at Mary Billick's property. We first shared Mary's problem back in early September. She tried to get some answers and directions from multiple organizations and agencies at the local and state levels. Since then, 6 News was able to tell her to try another group, but she's still waiting for help.
I do. I want my property fixed and I want the flooding stopped, because this will go, especially in the spring, it'll go on over and over. And every time my road and my bridge are going to need repair.
A spokesperson for the city of Temple says the city is currently working on the next steps in the process, which can include code compliance, citing that the property owner and enforcing correction of the flooding issue must be done if it has not been remedied. And in the city of Jarrell, they fired their city manager, a move that comes months after she filed a complaint over sexual harassment and discrimination. As Kelsey Sanchez explains for us, her attorney says it was wrongful termination, but some council members don't agree.
Danielle Singh was in her role as Jarrell City Manager for a little more than a year before council members voted her out.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay. Passes 3-2.
And her attorney says it was done in retaliation.
She dealt with an environment where she and others were facing sexual harassment, unwanted touching, even comments that simply because she was a woman with children, that she couldn't do her job.
Back in May, Singh filed complaints against 3 council members, accusing them of sexual harassment and discrimination. Tanner Sheaf says Daniel Islas, Adam Marsh, and Jake Siddell, who are named in the complaints, are the ones who voted her out.
I think coming forward with claims is always going to put a target on your back, and she knew that. And it made the target worse.
Singh had been on administrative leave since mid-September, and when she was fired, Sheaf says they've been working with the city's attorney to see how to accommodate her since she didn't feel comfortable coming back to work. So she claims her firing was illegal under state and federal employment law. But some council members tell a different story.
It wasn't something we created. You know, we're going 100% based off the attorney's advice.
Daniel Islas, one of the council members named in Singh's complaint back in May, says Singh's firing was done in due process and feels she did a good job running the city. He said she was fired simply for not showing up.
You know, there's been no slander. It's just we're just trying to move through a difficult situation for the best interest of the city.
Islas said Singh came into an already hostile work environment when she was hired in June of 2023. And he admits change does need to be made.
I mean, it's been something we've been trying to repair from the beginning. And Danielle was a supposed solution, but unfortunately it didn't work that way.
As for Singh, Sheaf says they will be updating the complaint with her termination and exploring all legal options.
She still is proud of herself for being able to come forward and stand up for all the women who are going through the same thing, who felt like they didn't have the same voice as her.
The city of Jarrell has appointed an interim city manager. He's a candidate for mayor alongside Islas and Seidel. Well, it was a fiery but decently respectful debate between incumbent Republican Senator Ted Cruz and the Democrat candidate Congressman Colin Allred. They faced off in their only debate in their U.S. Senate race in Dallas, and we brought it to you right here on KCN and, of course, on the 6 Plus app. But if you missed it, we have the biggest takeaways for you right now.
Democrat Colin Allred.
Senator Ted Cruz and Representative Colin Allred squaring off in Dallas as they vie for Texans' votes for the U.S. Senate seat. In the first and only debate, the tone set quickly.
I've been the most bipartisan Texan in Congress. I'm the exact opposite of Senator Cruz, who's the most extreme senator in the United States Senate, maybe the most extreme in the last 30 years.
Colin Allred is going to try to say an awful lot of words that sound reasonable. But what he's not going to talk about is his own record or my record.
You could say things got chippy between the two, especially on certain topics like abortion.
In Texas, we overwhelmingly agree that late-term abortions in the 8th and 9th months, that's too extreme. And I'll tell you, in Texas, we overwhelmingly agree that taxpayer money shouldn't pay for abortions. Unfortunately, Congressman Allred's voting record rejects that Texas consensus.
Senator Cruz just looked into a camera and lied to Texans about my position. When I'm in the United States Senate, we'll restore a woman's right to choose. We'll make Roe v. Wade the law of the land again.
Or the border.
I believe in physical barriers as part of a comprehensive strategy to secure the border. Senator Cruz treats our border communities like he's going on some kind of a safari. He comes down, he puts on his outdoor clothes, he tries to look tough, and he goes back to Washington and does nothing to help.
I worked hand in hand with President Trump to secure the border, and we achieved incredible success. We produced the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years.
And inflation.
The inflation caused by Kamala Harris and Colin Allred's spending binge is hurting Texans across the board. And I got to tell you, inflation has in particular been exacerbated by Kamala Harris and Colin Allred's war on energy and oil and gas in Texas.
Meanwhile, Allred says Cruz isn't helping all Texans.
Somebody who goes to the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun, do you really think he cares about inflation and about working families? When his entire career, he spent his time trying to cut taxes for the rich and not looking out for working folks. When I'm in the Senate, we'll have somebody who will try to represent all 30 million of us and make sure we keep a focus on lowering your costs everywhere we can.
Other topics touched on during the debate were foreign policy, transgender rights, and January 6th. The debate was exclusive to KCEN in the Central Texas area. If you would like to watch the debate in its entirety, you can search for the Texas Debate 2024 right here on the 6 Plus streaming app. Now, advocates for a death row inmate are trying to get a new trial. Texas planned to execute Robert Roberson Thursday night at 6 o'clock. After a bunch of last-ditch efforts to keep him alive, the Texas Supreme Court has now stepped in to stay the execution. They're upholding a subpoena for Roberson sent from a Texas House committee. Roberson will live to testify at the committee hearing on Monday. The 80 lawmakers that helped make it happen say Roberson deserves a second chance in court.
I would love to see him get a new trial. There's so much that a jury has never heard, and that what we learned in the committee hearing yesterday was that there was so much that was thrown out on hearsay, medical experts, things that were not allowed. So he needs a new trial to have all of this properly heard.
Pneumonia complications. They're claiming Texas's junk science law will lead to Roberson's freedom. The Texas House Committee hearing on Monday will use Roberson's testimony to determine if the junk science law is being applied the right way for criminal cases. And if you grew up in Texas, you are well aware of how important homecoming season was. In school, a big part of that was, of course, the mums. There's nothing quite like it, and that's why one Central Texas woman is making it her mission to spread the joy of a Texas tradition. Reporter Hannah Rucker brings us the story of the mom who loves mums.
Purpose of homecoming.
Sparkly, colorful ribbons carefully draped over each wall, attached to a big chrysanthemum. MUM for short.
That joy can live on and on, because we can continue to donate and recycle and upgrade.
It's a classic Friday Night Light tradition. For decades, Texas high schoolers show up on the Friday of the homecoming football game to display their mums and garters. It's a tradition that Ruiz says one year she was left out of.
My junior, senior year, my parents divorced, and life as we knew it changed. When homecoming rolled around, it was one of those things that my parents couldn't afford because life was different.
Making sure no child feels like that again, Ruiz is upcycling mums, taking donations from people across the state of Texas. The two of us opened up a box together, and weirdly enough, I recognized one of the donations.
I get supplies.
Wait a second. That's my high school.
Where? Let me see.
Coppell Cowboys.
It is. Oh
my God.
The tradition has evolved over the years as the mums have gradually grown in size, getting bigger and bigger and become more personalized. Here's some photos that were actually sent to me by viewers from across districts in Central Texas.
It is not unheard of to see mums in the $800 range. I think the average price here in Central is about $175 to $225.
Ruiz has taken on the mums as a labor of love.
We get into a situation where only certain people can enjoy things because they can afford it, and to me that's not the spirit of homecoming.
You can learn more and donate to Ruiz's mission by searching Homecoming on our website, that being kcentv.com. Well, so glad you spent a little time with us. I'm Chris Radcliffe. Thanks for joining our In the News Now program here on 6 Plus. Next, it's 6 News meteorologist Aviana Smith who has your Weather 101. Check it out.
Welcome into another edition of 6 News Weather Impact 101. I'm Weather Impact meteorologist Aviana Smith, and today we will be breaking down the difference between high as well as low pressure. I'm sure those are terms that everyone are familiar with by now, but what exactly does that mean and what exactly does that represent? Well, we know that high pressure is normally represented by a big capital H that is blue. It brings us clear and sunny days with light winds and beautiful weather, actually. So when we talk about high pressure, we normally associate it with gorgeous days. We always encourage you all to get out and enjoy. High pressure does rotate clockwise in the northern hemisphere, and what high pressure is it is cool and dry air that sinks and it warms as it sinks down to the surface. So think about when you put a lid on a pot and you trap that heat inside. That is a good representation of high pressure. That's why we normally do see warmer days when we speak about high pressure. Now, in terms of low pressure, it brings us unstable weather patterns such as rain and storms. It rotates counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere, and it occurs when warm, moist air rises and cools. So that's why you see a lot of clouds present with low pressure systems, and again, a lot of rainfall. So think about evaporation there. When the rain evaporates, it goes up and it forms clouds because we have more moisture in the atmosphere, and low pressure is represented by a big capital L that is red. And typically what that means is that it also could change our wind. So we have low pressure and high pressure at the surface, but as well as in the upper levels, and we always want pressure to be equal. So pressure is always at a battle trying to be at equal pressure. But when you have high pressure that is weak as well as a weak low pressure system in place, you won't get very strong winds. So if you have that small change in pressure, then that's when we see those weaker winds in the upper levels. But just like if we have strong pressure, you will see stronger winds. So strong high pressure met with a strong low pressure, that's when we see those gusty wind days, typically up to about 25 to 35 mile per hour winds. But remember, those high pressure is represented by a big capital H and low pressure is represented by a big red capital L. And this is typically what a map looks like when we talk about high and low pressure at the surface there. And normally it's associated with either a cold front system or a trough. And again, that's why we see those winds pushing in with those fronts that come across our area, because that change in high and low pressure. Remember, pressure is always trying to fight to get to that equal state. And we also have it in the upper level. So this is what is represented like when we talk about high pressure setup. And so as we look in the upper levels and you see that high pressure system building in or that low pressure system building in, we're associated with a trough in a ridge. So if we're under a ridge, that represents high pressure, and if we're under a trough, that represents low pressure. And actually this setup that we are seeing now is known as an omega block pattern, and it gets its name because it's shaped like the Greek alphabet omega. So there's that kind of arch look that you get when you have low pressure off to the east as well as to the west and high pressure in the center. That's when you see an omega block pattern. And again, we have high and low pressure at the surface and at the upper level. So hopefully that gave you a good representation of the difference between high and low pressure and what to look for when we talk about these symbols on our maps. But if you have any more questions for your Weather Impact 101 segments, you can email us at weather@kcentv.com or text any questions to 254-777-6000. That'll conclude your Weather Impact 101 today. Hope you all join us for our next episode.